Part 1 begins on an ordinary morning that feels no different from any other day on Earth. People everywhere go about their usual routines, opening shops, rushing to offices, watering plants, making breakfast. No one has the slightest idea that something unusual is silently traveling toward their planet. It is not a spaceship or anything dramatic. It is just a signal, small, cracked, and weak, drifting through space like a lost voice. It slips past distant stars, passes ruins of old satellites, and finally reaches a quiet receiver inside a research station tucked deep in the mountains. The first person to notice it is a technician who is used to long, slow nights filled with boring data. He almost ignores it because it looks like background noise, the type of glitch that shows up when weather shifts or antennas vibrate. But something about the pattern makes him pause. It repeats in a rhythm, uneven but intentional. He calls a senior researcher who listens carefully and feels a chill run through him. This is not a random wave. It feels like a voice, but not in any language known on Earth. They record it and run it through different filters. The sound is shaky, like someone speaking through a broken speaker. At one moment it is high, then it drops low, then it crackles out. It doesn't sound like music, but it doesn't sound like normal speech either. The only thing the technology can identify clearly is a kind of emotional imprint. Fear. Something or someone is terrified. Within an hour, the research station contacts a national observatory. The signal is passed to specialists from different fields: linguists, sound engineers, astronomers, mathematicians. Everyone tries to decode it, and although they fail to understand the words, they agree on one thing: this is not natural. Someone out there is trying to send a message. The news spreads quietly among scientific circles. They keep it controlled so the public does not panic, but the seriousness grows. A small international committee is formed. They meet online, staring at the same audio clip, replaying it again and again. The more they listen, the more it starts sounding like a distress call. There is no proof, yet everyone feels it in their chest. One of the mathematicians notices a repeating sequence in the background of the signal. It almost looks like coordinates. Another specialist identifies a pattern that resembles a request or plea, although they still cannot translate it. The whole thing feels like a puzzle, with half the pieces missing. As they work on it, they realize the message is old. By comparing its distortion and the way cosmic background radiation affects it, they estimate it has been traveling for years, maybe even decades. Whatever sent it must be far from Earth. Meanwhile, the technician who first spotted it watches from the side, shocked that something he nearly ignored has now become the center of global attention. He tells his friends he does not know what is happening. He doesn't even know if this is real. All he knows is that he feels uneasy, like the world has quietly shifted into a new chapter without warning. Days pass. Scientists sleep in offices, live on coffee, and argue over small details. Some think the message might be fake. Some think it could be a forgotten Earth probe. But then something unexpected happens. A second signal arrives. This time it is shorter, even weaker, and far more damaged. But this one contains something that the computers latch on to immediately, an emotional tone so strong that nobody doubts it. Panic, desperation, a kind of fear they've never heard in any animal or human voice. Several countries join the effort. Space agencies begin checking their deep space archives. Old telescopes are reactivated. The United Nations quietly forms a communication task group, although they keep the details hidden from the public. While analyzing the second signal, a linguist notices a strange repetition. A word, or at least something that functions like one. The pattern appears 3 times. When the team isolates it, they hear a trembling sound, followed by a long static wave, as if the speaker hesitated or was too afraid to finish their sentence. Nobody understands it, but everyone feels something is terribly wrong. After 4 days of constant work, the team manages to pull a slightly clearer version from the noise. It's still broken, still alien, but they finally capture one identifiable phrase in a digital spectrogram. Not in human language, but the translation software forms a workable equivalent. We request mercy. The room goes silent. Even though the words are rough and uncertain, the message is clear. Someone, somewhere, is begging for help from something they cannot escape. And for some unknown reason, this plea has reached Earth. The scientists are unsure how to react. Some believe Earth should respond immediately. Others think replying could be dangerous. One member suggests the message may not even be meant for Earth. It might have been broadcast into space without a specific target. Then comes the most confusing discovery. A communication expert notices a separate line hidden deep in the background frequencies of the second signal. It is nearly erased, buried under static, almost indistinguishable. When they slow it down and clean the audio, the shape of the word becomes readable. It is not Earth. It is not a familiar place or object. It is a label, a term, a name given by someone else. Translates roughly to Dreadworlders. Everyone in the room exchanges confused looks. Nobody understands what it means. Is it a warning? A description? A misunderstanding? No one knows, but then the researcher studying the waveform realizes something that makes the entire team freeze. This message, the warning, the cry for mercy, it wasn't sent to Earth. It was sent to someone else, warning them about Earth. The idea feels surreal. People joke nervously at first, but no one laughs for long. Because when they compare older fragments of the signal, they find more references to the same term. Different versions, different pronunciations, all describing something that sounds uncomfortably close to humans. The message is not saying Earth is dangerous directly. It seems to be warning others about beings from a harsh, unpredictable world. A world with storms, droughts, predators, diseases, yet its people survive and adapt. To someone from a gentler place, humans might look frightening or unstoppable without meaning to. This realization shocks everyone. No one on Earth ever expected to hear themselves described this way. People think of humans as ordinary, some kind, some flawed, all just trying to live. But to distant civilizations, the conditions of Earth might make humans seem like something else entirely. A debate begins. Should they ignore the signal? Should they respond? Should they wait for more? The team votes. After long discussion, arguments, and hours of careful thought, they choose transparency. They decide Earth should not remain silent. Even if the message was not meant for them, they believe responding calmly and thoughtfully is the right thing to do. A small group of experts begins crafting a reply. They want it simple, peaceful, and honest. The world does not need dramatic statements. Just a calm introduction. But before they send anything, something strange happens at the research center. Late at night, as most of the team sleeps on chairs and floor cushions, another faint burst of sound appears in the receiver. It is so short that computers almost discard it. An intern catches it by chance, copies it, and alerts everyone. When they analyze it, they discover it is from the same source as the earlier messages. This one contains only 4 words. 4 shaky, frightened words. They are coming. Here. The atmosphere in the room changes instantly. The fear in the voices, the urgency, it feels real, not exaggerated. Something out there is moving, approaching, and the sender believes whoever is coming is heading toward Earth. The team does not know whether to panic or remain logical. They do not know who they are. They do not know if it is a threat or just a misunderstanding. All they know is that someone far away believes Earth is involved in something much larger. People sit down slowly, absorbing the weight of the moment. Earth, without choosing, has been pulled into a story already in progress, one that started light years away, The head of the committee looks around the room. Everyone is waiting for instructions, for reassurance, for clarity. But no one has answers. Finally, with a steady voice, he says the only thing that makes sense. We respond with peace. And so, Earth begins to prepare a message, not of fear, not of strength, but of understanding that the world does not yet know what is coming. But on this quiet night, with a small group of tired scientists sitting under dim lights, humanity takes its first step into a future it never expected. Part 2 begins with a heavy silence hanging over the room. Everyone who heard the 3 short words from the mysterious signal still feels them echoing in their mind. They are coming here. The message was too broken to understand clearly, yet the fear behind it was unmistakable. People are used to dealing with data, numbers, and theories, but this feels different. It feels personal, like someone far away placed their last hope in Earth and whispered a warning. The committee regroups early in the morning. Some members haven't slept at all. Others tried, but woke up again and again with strange dreams. Outside the research building, the world goes on normally. Children walk to school. Traffic jams fill roads. People buy groceries, completely unaware of the discovery unfolding quietly among a few scientists. The team gathers around a long table. The head researcher switches on a projector and plays the cleaned version of the message. Even though they've heard it dozens of times, the room stays silent. Every time the voice trembles, it feels like a real person is calling out through the darkness of space. One of the communication experts finally breaks the silence. This person explains that although the translation is rough, they are confident the message is not made of random sounds. It carries structure. It carries emotion. It carries intention. That alone tells them the sender is conscious and intelligent enough to form meaning. Another specialist begins sharing new findings from the night. They manage to decode more fragments from the first message. The decoded pieces show patterns similar to warnings, although still too damaged to form complete sentences. One fragment resembles something like avoid or stay away. Another piece seems to match a phrase like dangerous world. Nothing is exact, but the hints are enough to unsettle everyone. After hours of work, the team notices a connection they overlooked. The strange label Dreadworlders appears at least 4 times across different parts of the signal. And even though the language is unknown, the emotional tone behind it feels conflicted. It is not purely negative. Instead, it carries a complicated mixture of respect, caution, and fear. Almost like someone describing something powerful, but not necessarily evil. The team discusses what the term might mean. A scientist who studies extreme planets offers a theory. Perhaps the alien life comes from worlds much gentler than Earth places without hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, diseases, and predators. From their perspective, Earth could look harsh and unpredictable, and the species living on such a planet might appear stronger or more adaptable than they could ever imagine. Another member adds, a simple example, the story of how humans survive freezing mountains, burning deserts, and deep oceans. To a species from a calm environment, that level of endurance might seem unnatural or frightening. No one likes the thought of being misunderstood, but it makes sense. Humans have always survived challenges, not because they are monsters, but because they never stop trying. As the team continues analyzing, a deeper realization starts to form. The plea for mercy, the frightened tone. It might not have been directed toward Earth at all. The alien voice may have been begging someone else to avoid the Dreadworlders, believing humans would react aggressively if provoked. But why would they think that? What stories or experiences made them believe humans were dangerous? Before they could answer that, another troubling detail appears. The signal wasn't sent once. It repeated itself multiple times, suggesting the sender was desperate. This raises more questions. Were they running from someone? Were they trapped? Were they hoping someone anyone, would hear them? The team decides that remaining silent is no longer an option. They must reply not to show strength, not to threaten, but to reassure. Earth does not want conflict. Earth wants peace, understanding, and communication. A small group begins drafting a message. They start with something simple. We hear you. We want to understand. We mean no harm. But the challenge is not the sentence. It's the method. How do they send a message to a location they can't fully identify? The signal's origin is faint, buried under cosmic noise, and likely far away. Still, they attempt to backtrack it. Astronomers compare data from multiple telescopes. Tracing the path of the signal through space, the signal seems to come from a region beyond the known maps, an area with scattered stars and possibly hidden systems. It will take weeks to confirm, but they have a rough direction. That alone is a start. Meanwhile, the rest of the world remains unaware. Only a handful of people know that humans may be part of an interstellar misunderstanding. The committee agrees to keep it confidential until they understand more. While preparing the reply, the team tries to interpret what the aliens meant by saying, "They are coming here." Some members fear it could be a threat. Others think it may be a warning about something else, maybe an enemy chasing the sender, maybe a disaster, maybe even another species trying to reach Earth for unknown reasons. But no one jumps to conclusions. They stay focused on facts. Throughout the day, tension rises inside the research building. Some people feel excited after all. Direct communication with another intelligence is something humanity has dreamed about for centuries. Others feel anxious, imagining worst-case scenarios. A few individuals step outside for air, staring at the sky with a strange mix of fear and wonder. Knowing that something or someone far away has spoken about Earth changes the way they look at the stars. Near evening, the team receives a breakthrough. A linguist notices that one section of the message includes a pattern similar to the way humans mark emphasis. Instead of raising volume or pitch, the signal uses a kind of frequency distortion. When they isolate that part, something becomes clearer. The sender wasn't describing humans as villains. They were describing humans as beings from a tough world who survive against all odds. The fear in the message might not be terror of humans. It might be fear of something else entirely. Something chasing them, something they hoped Earth could resist. This realization hits everyone hard. Maybe the aliens weren't scared of humans. Maybe they were scared for themselves. And maybe they believed humans were strong enough to help. This changes the tone of the discussion completely. Instead of worrying about a threat, the team starts thinking with empathy. They imagine a distant civilization, suffering or running, sending a desperate signal from the edge of the galaxy, praying someone would understand. The scientists begin to feel the weight of responsibility. Whether they like it or not, Earth has become part of someone else's story. And now they must decide what role they will play. As the night deepens, they finalize the reply message. They gather in the communication room. A large transmitter stands ready. The message is encoded in multiple patterns, hoping at least one will be understood. Before pressing send, the team hesitates. A quiet, almost emotional moment passes through the room. People think of their families, friends, and the simple life Earth enjoys. If this message reaches the wrong ears, could it bring danger? Could it invite someone harmful? But then they remember the trembling voice begging for mercy. Someone out there reached out in fear, hoping the universe still had pockets of kindness. Earth cannot stay silent. The team leader takes a deep breath and signals the transmission operator. The reply is sent. A soft hum fills the key room as the message shoots into the darkness, traveling at the speed of light toward an unknown corner of the cosmos. No one knows who will hear it. No one knows how they will react. After it's done, the team sits back quietly. They feel both relief and uncertainty. They have taken a step into something bigger than any nation, any belief, or any scientific field. A step that will shape the future, whether they are ready or not. Outside, the night sky looks peaceful as always. Stars shine in their usual patterns. Not a single person walking on the streets below imagines that Earth has just answered a voice from another world. The team now waits, unsure if another message will come, unsure if the sender even survived long enough to hear the reply. None of them know what they are coming here truly means. But they know one thing. Whatever comes next, humanity must face it with clarity, wisdom, and compassion. Because the universe has spoken, and for the first time, Earth has spoken back. Part 3 begins several days after Earth sends its first reply into the vast silence of space. Since then, nothing new has come through the receivers. No more strange noises, no more cries for help, no sense of what "they are coming here" truly meant. The wait feels endless for the team working in the research center. People still show up each morning with tired faces, holding cups of coffee, hoping today might bring an answer. Some pretend to be calm, but everyone carries the same uneasiness inside. They cannot shake the feeling that somewhere out there, something is watching Earth or trying to reach it. Life outside the facility continues normally. Families eat dinner, children do homework, office buildings open and close. Most of the world has no idea that a quiet group of scientists is holding its breath over a message from deep space. Only a small circle knows the truth, and even they struggle to understand it. The International Committee meets daily. They review every tiny piece of data again and again. Some hope they might have missed a clue hiding between static waves. Others fear there will be no reply at all. Maybe the sender never survived long enough to receive Earth's message. That thought weighs heavily on everyone, though no one says it aloud. One night, while people inside the research center slowly settle into their late-night routines, something unexpected happens. It begins with a faint alarm on one of the deep space scanners. Normally, this alarm rings when an asteroid or random space debris passes through a monitored region. The technician on duty almost dismisses it, but then he notices the reading is not coming from the usual direction. It's coming from the same region they traced the mysterious signals to. He looks closer. The reading does not match any known satellite or natural object. It is small, very small, but moving in a controlled way. Not drifting, not falling. Moving. His hands tremble slightly as he calls the senior research staff. Soon, half the facility gathers around the screen. The object is tiny, no bigger than a small bus, but it moves with smooth, subtle corrections, as if adjusting its path on purpose. That behavior is not natura. It is the movement of something guided or built. The team sends the coordinates to 2 space agencies. Within an hour, telescopes across the world turn toward the faint object. The image is blurry at first, just a small dot against the black background. But as more telescopes join in, the picture sharpens. It isn't a rock. It isn't a broken space probe. It is something else. The object has a strange shape, curved on one side, flat on another, with lights that flicker weakly as if the power source is failing. It looks damaged. Very damaged. A piece of it appears broken off, trailing bits of metal or material that float behind it. Someone whispers the obvious. It's a ship. Not a human ship. Not one built by engineers on Earth. A ship from somewhere else. A quiet shock fills the room. People stand still, unable to take their eyes off the screen. Some feel fear, others feel awe, but everyone feels the weight of the moment. This is the first real physical sign that the signals were not a mistake. Something alive sent them. Something alive might be inside that damaged craft. The discovery triggers fast action around the world. Leaders from different countries join emergency calls. Discussions begin about safety, protocols, and secrecy. Some want to hide the information. Others argue that humanity cannot turn its back on a wounded vessel drifting into the solar system. But the scientists have a different perspective. They feel a kind of quiet responsibility. They heard a voice begging for mercy. Now, a broken craft is slowly drifting toward their planet. It cannot be ignored that the research team prepares a full report. They highlight every detail they observed: the ship's speed, its trajectory, its unstable power readings. The ship appears to be slowing down, not because it wants to, but because it is losing energy. If it continues like this, it will not survive long. Within hours, a decision is made. Earth should send a rescue mission, though the operation must be handled carefully. The goal is simple: reach the craft, assess the situation, and help whoever or whatever is inside. Not with aggression, not with fear, but with humanity. A small crew is assembled, not soldiers, but specialist engineers, doctors, linguists, and pilots trained for unpredictable situations. They undergo quick briefings about safety and communication protocols. Everyone knows they are stepping into the unknown, but they do not hesitate. They understand the value of compassion, especially when dealing with someone who asked for mercy. God, as preparations continue, the craft draws closer to Earth's orbit. Telescopes capture clearer images. The ship appears even more damaged than before, cracks running along its surface, strange burns on one side, and windows dark and lifeless. It looks like it has been through something terrible. The day the rescue mission launches, tension blankets the entire facility. People watch the screens, listening to the countdown. When the spacecraft lifts off, a quiet sense of unity fills the room. Humanity, for the first time, is reaching out not for exploration, not for conquest, but for empathy. The mission takes hours. As the crew approaches the alien craft, they describe what they see. The damaged vessel rotates slowly, drifting without direction. Its lights flicker erratically. A section of the hull appears melted, as if it faced intense heat. The rescue crew docks carefully. Then comes the hardest moment: opening the hatch. At first, there is darkness. The air inside is thin and cold. The crew uses lights to explore. Then they see them, figures slumped along the walls and floor, faintly breathing, barely conscious. Their shapes are unfamiliar, their bodies thin and fragile, as if they were never meant to endure such damage. The crew does not panic. They are trained to remain calm. They approach slowly, gesturing with open hands. The alien survivors react weakly, some barely moving. Their eyes show exhaustion and fear, but also confusion. In that moment, Earth's crew understands something important. These beings are scared, not dangerous. They did not come here to attack. They came here because they had nowhere else to go. The rescue team begins assisting them, carefully offering air, warmth, and gentle support. The aliens seem hesitant, but when they realize they are being helped, their fear softens. When one alien tries to speak, the sound is weak and broken. But the emotion behind it is clear: relief, gratitude, hope. The crew brings them aboard the Earth vessel and begins stabilizing their condition. They avoid using words, knowing language might be a barrier. Instead, they use gestures, slow movements, and calm tones. Human compassion speaks louder than any language. During the journey back, one of the aliens finally manages to produce a phrase. The translation equipment struggles with it, but one part comes through clearly. Dreadworlders, help. The crew exchanges thoughtful glances. This is the first time they've heard the word spoken aloud. But the way it is said carries no fear. It carries respect, trust, maybe even admiration. When the rescue vessel returns to Earth's orbit and docks at the secure facility prepared for this mission, the entire research team, watches with mixed emotions. Some are amazed. Some are overwhelmed. Some quietly wipe tears from their eyes. Humanity has made contact, not with invaders, not with conquerors, but with frightened travelers who saw Earth not as a threat, but as their last hope. As medical specialists assist the aliens and communication experts try to understand their language, one truth becomes clear. The universe may see humans differently than they see themselves. But today, Earth proved something important. Not that they are Dreadworlders in the way legends described, but that they are capable of offering kindness in the darkest moments. And somewhere deep in the facility, the research team sits together, realizing everything has changed. Their world is no longer alone. And whatever happens next, humanity must navigate it with wisdom, with understanding, and above all, with heart. When the sun rose the next morning, the air outside felt different, almost heavier, as if the world already knew that something important was waiting for him. He woke up earlier than usual, even though he had barely slept. His mind kept returning to the strange events of the previous days, the unexpected visitor, the sudden shift in his daily routine, and the quiet feeling inside him that something was changing. Slowly but surely, he sat on the edge of his bed and took a long breath. The room felt too small for all the thoughts running through his head. He wasn't sure why a simple conversation from yesterday kept echoing in his mind, but it did. Every word, every look, every pause, it stayed with him like a shadow that refused to leave. He washed his face and went to the kitchen. The house was silent. Even the small noises that usually filled the morning felt distant. As he made tea, his hands moved automatically, but his mind was somewhere else. He kept wondering if he was finally stepping into a chapter of life he never expected to face. After breakfast, he stepped outside. The street looked the same, but his heart felt different. The questions inside him were growing, and he didn't know how to answer them. But something kept pulling him forward. Maybe it was hope. Maybe fear. Maybe a mixture of both. When he reached the old workshop, the door was already slightly open. He paused, took a breath, and walked in. The familiar smell of metal and dust greeted him, the same way it had for years. Yet today it felt like the place was waiting for him. Inside. The man who had visited him earlier was already standing near the workbench, studying something with quiet focus. His posture was calm, steady, almost too calm for a normal person. For a second, he wondered if this man had always been like this, or if today something was different for him too. "You're on time," the man said without looking up. He replied with a small nod, unsure what else to say. He wasn't used to situations like this. His life had always been simple, predictable. He liked knowing what each day would bring. But now he felt like the ground beneath him was shifting. Piece by piece, the man finally turned and looked at him closely. Not with judgment, not with pity, just a steady, measuring gaze, as if he was trying to understand something deep inside him. "We have a long day ahead," the man said. "Are you ready?" He hesitated for a moment. He wasn't sure what being ready even meant anymore. But something inside him whispered that turning back now would only haunt him later. So he said yes quietly, but clearly. For the next few hours, he listened carefully as the man explained each detail, each instruction, each small thing that could make a big difference later. Some of it felt confusing, some of it made sense, and some of it made him question if he had made the right choice. But the man had a way of speaking that made everything feel possible. Even when it sounded difficult. At one point, he asked the man why he had chosen him. Out of so many people, why him? The man paused, looked at him with a thoughtful expression, and said, "Because sometimes the people who doubt themselves the most are the ones who do the most unexpected things." He didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever said something like this to him before. He had always been the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, the one who avoided problems instead of running toward them. Hearing someone believe in him felt strange, almost unreal. As the day went on, he found himself slowly growing more comfortable. Not fully confident, but less afraid. Each small task he completed made him feel a little stronger, a little more capable. It wasn't easy, but he kept going. Around midday, they took a break. They sat outside on a small wooden bench, the sun warming their faces. For a moment, everything felt normal, again like two people simply taking a break from a long day of work. He looked at the sky and felt a quiet peace inside him. The man spoke first. "You know, sometimes life brings us moments we never asked for," he said softly. "But those moments can lead us to places we never imagined." He listened, trying to understand the deeper meaning behind those words. Maybe the man had his own story, his own struggles, his own reasons for being here. But he didn't ask. He felt like the man wasn't ready to share that part of himself yet, and he respected that. After the break, they continued working. The tasks became more detailed, more precise. He made mistakes, more than he wanted to admit, but the man never raised his voice or showed frustration. Instead, he explained things again, calmly and patiently, until he finally understood. There was a moment in the afternoon when he almost gave up. One small step wasn't working, no matter how many times he tried. His hands shook, and his chest tightened with frustration. He stepped back, clenched his fists, and looked away so the man wouldn't see how upset he was. But the man did notice. "You're not failing," the man said gently. "You're learning. There's a difference." He closed his eyes for a second, letting those words sink in. No one had ever been this patient with him before. Slowly, he tried again. And this time, the step worked. A small success, but it lifted his spirits. As the sun began to set, they cleaned up the workshop. He felt tired, but it was a different kind of tired one that came from giving his full effort. The man seemed satisfied, though his face stayed calm as always. "You did well today," the man said. He felt a warm feeling in his chest. Not pride exactly, but something close to it. Something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Before leaving, the man handed him a small folded paper. "Read this when you get home," he said simply. "It will help you understand what tomorrow will bring." He took the paper, feeling its weight, even though it was light. He didn't know why a simple piece of paper made him feel so nervous, but it did. On the walk home, the sky turned orange and pink, a beautiful mix that made everything look softer. For the first time in days, he smiled quietly to himself. He still didn't understand everything, but he felt like he had taken a step in the right direction. At home, he sat on his bed and unfolded the paper. Inside were a few instructions, a few warnings, and a short message at the bottom. The message said, "Tomorrow will change more than you think. Be ready." He stared at those words for a long time. They were simple, but they carried a weight he couldn't ignore. As he lay down that night, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. His life had never been this unpredictable, but somehow he wasn't running from it anymore. Tomorrow would come. And for the first time, he wanted to face it. The next morning began with a quiet heaviness in the air, the kind that made him feel as if the world was holding its breath. He woke up earlier than usual, not because he wanted to, but because his mind refused to rest. He had spent most of the night turning from side to side, thinking about the paper the man had given him and the message written at the bottom. Those words kept repeating in his mind like a soft echo that refused to fade. He sat up slowly, rubbed his eyes, and looked around his room. Everything was exactly the same walls, the same shelves, the same window letting in the pale morning light. But inside him, something felt different. It was like the place he had known his whole life no longer fit him the same way. Maybe he was changing. Maybe life was preparing him for something bigger. He didn't know, but he could feel it. After washing up, he went to the kitchen and made a simple breakfast. His hands moved automatically, but his thoughts were still tangled. The paper lay on the table, folded neatly. He kept glancing at it, even though he already knew what it said. He had memorized every line. Still, the sight of it made him feel uneasy. Curious, but uneasy. He took a deep breath, finished eating, and stepped outside. The morning air felt cold, but refreshing. The sky had a soft gray color, and there was a light breeze carrying the smell of dew and dust. He walked down the street slowly, noticing small things he usually ignored, the sound of a distant scooter, the rustle of leaves, the bark of a neighborhood dog. For some reason, everything felt sharper, clearer. When he reached the workshop, the door was slightly open again, just like the day before. He pushed it gently and stepped inside. The man was already there, standing beside a table filled with tools and notes. His expression was serious, focused, and somehow calmer than yesterday. "You came early," the man said without looking up. He nodded silently and walked closer. There was something different about the workshop today. The atmosphere felt heavier, like the room itself understood the importance of what was about to happen. The man finally looked at him. "Today is not like yesterday," he said. "We will go deeper. You must stay patient and calm. If something feels too difficult, speak up." He felt his heart beat a little faster, but replied quietly, "I will try." The man's expression softened slightly, just for a second. Trying is enough for now. The day began with tasks that were more complicated than anything he had done before. The man didn't rush him, but each step required more focus, more precision, more trust in himself. At first, he felt overwhelmed. His hands shook and he made small mistakes. But the man calmly corrected him, guiding him without judgment. Sometimes the man explained things in detail. Other times, he let him figure things out on his own. It was challenging, but oddly, it made him feel alive. It was like he was discovering a part of himself he had never used before something sharp. Steady and capable as they worked, the man shared small pieces of advice. Not instructions, not warnings, just simple truths. "Fear is natural," he said at one point. "It means you understand the value of what you're doing." Later, when he hesitated, the man said, "Doubt is not your enemy. Giving up is." These words stayed with him, settling somewhere deep inside, giving him the strength to continue. Around midday, they paused for a break. Instead of stepping outside, they stayed inside the workshop. The man poured water into 2 cups and handed him one. He accepted it, grateful for the short rest. "Tell me something," the man said suddenly. "Why didn't you turn away when all this started?" He didn't answer right away. He wasn't even sure he knew the full reason himself. But after a moment, he said, "Because I didn't want to live my life wondering what could have happened if I had said yes." The man nodded slowly, as if he respected that answer. That is a stronger reason than most people have. The break didn't last long. Soon they were working again, and the tasks kept getting harder. At one point, he felt like he couldn't breathe properly from all the pressure. His shoulders were tense, his fingers tired. He wondered if he could keep up. But then the man placed a hand on the table beside him and said quietly, "You're doing better than you think." Those simple words steadied him. In the late afternoon, something unexpected happened. The man introduced a new part of the task, something far more serious. Before explaining it, he closed the door of the workshop and lowered his voice. "What you learn now," the man said, "will shape everything that comes next." The seriousness in his tone made him swallow hard. The man then showed him a small device, something he had never seen before. It didn't look dangerous, but it looked important. The man explained its purpose carefully, step by step, making sure he understood every detail. At first, he struggled to grasp the full concept. His mind raced, and he kept asking questions. The man answered each one patiently, even repeating himself when needed. Slowly, the confusion faded and understanding began to form. When he finally performed the task correctly, the man let out a quiet breath, almost like relief. "Good," he said. "Very good. Most people need several days to get this right." Hearing that made him feel a quiet sense of achievement. Not pride, just the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was capable of more than he thought. As the sun began to set outside, the workshop grew dim. The man lit a small lamp, its warm glow filling the room. They cleaned up the tools together in silence. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It felt natural, like both of them were thinking about the same thing. "You've done enough for today," the man said finally. "But tomorrow will demand even more from you." He felt a shiver run down his spine. Not from fear, but from the weight of the unknown. Before he left, the man handed him a small notebook. "Take this," he said. "There are things written inside that you must read before you sleep." He accepted the notebook with both hands. It felt heavier than it looked, as if the pages carried more meaning than simple words. On the walk home, he kept the notebook close to his chest. The sky was a deep shade of blue, and the streetlights flickered on one by one. His footsteps echoed softly on the pavement. Every sound felt sharper, every breath deeper. Got at home, he sat on his bed and opened the notebook. The first few pages explained instructions, clear, detailed, and serious. But near the end, there was a short message written in a man's handwriting. "You have more strength than you believe. Tomorrow will test that strength. Trust yourself." These words sank into him quietly, like water filling an empty space. He closed the notebook and leaned back. The room was silent, but his heart wasn't. It beat with a mix of nerves, hope, fear, and something he had not felt in a very long time. Purpose. He lay down slowly, staring at the ceiling. The world outside was calm, but inside him, something was waking up. His journey was no longer just about learning tasks. It was about becoming someone he didn't even know he could be. Tomorrow was coming, and this time, he wasn't afraid to face it. The morning of the final day arrived with a strange kind of calmness. The kind that made everything feel slower, quieter, and heavier. He woke up before the sun had fully risen, even though he had barely slept. His mind had been circling around the notebook the man gave him, especially the last line. That simple sentence kept returning to him again and again, settling somewhere deep inside his thoughts. He got out of bed and stood near the window. The sky outside had a soft purple shade, and there was a cold breeze coming through the slightly open glass. He leaned his forehead against the window for a moment. The coolness helped him steady his breath. Today wasn't going to be like any other day. He could feel it in his bones. Something was going to change, and he didn't know whether he was ready for it or not. But he also knew he couldn't walk away now. After washing his face and getting dressed, he sat at the table and opened the notebook again, even though he had already read it 3 times. The instructions were detailed and serious, but it was the handwritten message at the end that held his attention. It felt like the man wasn't just giving him information. He was giving him a part of his trust, something that wasn't easy to earn. He closed the notebook slowly and placed it in his bag. Then he stepped outside. The morning air was colder than usual. The streets were mostly empty, except for a few early workers and an old shopkeeper sweeping dust near his gate. Everything felt normal, yet he felt anything but normal. His footsteps made soft sounds on the pavement as he walked. Each step felt heavier than the last, not because of fear, but because every part of him understood that this was the last stretch of the journey. The man had said yesterday, Tomorrow will demand even more from you. And those words rang in his mind like a quiet bell. When he reached the workshop, the door was closed completely this time. No slight opening, no warm glow from inside. He hesitated for a moment before knocking. There was a short pause, and then the door opened slightly. The man looked at him with calm eyes, but there was something else in his expression, something serious, almost emotional, though he hid it well. "You're on time," the man said. He nodded. "I didn't want to be late today." The man stepped aside and allowed him to enter. The workshop looked different today. The tools were arranged neatly, the table completely cleared, except for one device placed in the center. It wasn't big or dangerous looking, but it carried a sense of importance. There was a weight in the air, like the room had been waiting for this moment. The man closed the door behind him. "Before we start," he said, "I want you to understand something. What you're about to do is not a task. It is a responsibility." His heart beat harder. He swallowed and said softly, "I understand." The man walked around the table, placing his hand on the device. "For the past week, I've watched you push past your fear, your doubt, your hesitation. I've seen you question yourself and still continue. That is rare." He paused. "That is why I chose you." He felt warmth spread through his chest, mixed with surprise. Nobody had ever said anything like that to him. He didn't know how to respond, so he simply listened. The man continued, "Today, you will complete the final step. Once you do, everything I've taught you will come together. You will not need my guidance anymore." Those words hit him more heavily than he expected. The idea of not needing the man's guidance felt both empowering and strangely sad. He had grown used to the man's presence, his calm instructions, his quiet confidence. Letting go felt like stepping out into cold air. "Are you ready?" the man asked. He took a long, steady breath. "Yes, I'm ready." The next few hours were a mix of precision, focus, and silence. The man guided him through the final process, explaining each part in a slow, patient tone. Every movement had to be careful. Every decision mattered. There was no rushing, no guessing. It was like solving a puzzle where every piece shaped the outcome. His hands trembled at times, but he pushed through it. His mind felt stretched, not from confusion, but from responsibility. This wasn't just about proving himself. It was about living up to the trust someone had placed in him. At one point, the man stepped back and watched him without saying anything. He realized suddenly that the man wasn't guiding him anymore. He was letting him work on his own. That small shift made his heart pound. It was a test not of skill, but of belief that minute by minute, piece by piece, he completed the final task. The workshop was silent, except for the soft sound of tools and his steady breathing. When he placed the final part into place, a quiet click echoed through the room. A simple sound, but it felt like the closing of a long chapter. He stepped back slowly, unsure if he had done everything correctly. His palms were sweating. He turned to the man, waiting for a reaction. The man stared at the completed work for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "You did it?" Those 3 words hit him harder than expected. Relief washed over him first, then a warm, deep sense of accomplishment. He hadn't just finished a task. He had completed a journey he once thought he wasn't even capable of beginning. The man walked closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. His throat felt tight, and he had to look away for a second to steady himself. Nobody had said those words to him in years. Not like this, not with such honesty. The man stepped back and took a deep breath. "From today onward," he said, "your path is yours alone. You have the skills. You have the strength. And most importantly, you have learned to trust yourself." He nodded slowly. taking in every word. He felt something shift inside him, something like a door opening to a wider world. They spent a little time cleaning the workshop together, not talking much. The silence felt peaceful, not heavy. Both of them knew that this was the end of a chapter. When everything was put away, the man walked him to the door. Before opening it, he said softly, "Whatever challenges come next, remember what you learned here. Do not forget your own strength." He nodded and whispered, "I won't." The man opened the door. The evening light spilled into the workshop, painting the floor with warm tones. He stepped outside and turned around one last time. The man stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching him with a quiet, proud expression. "Take care," the man said. "You too," he replied. Then he walked away, each step feeling lighter than the last. The street was filled with soft golden light, and the world seemed wider, brighter, more open. For the first time in a long time, he felt ready. Not because someone told him he could do it, but because he had proved it to himself. As he reached the corner of the street, he looked back once more. The workshop door was closed now, but he felt no sadness. Some endings were not endings at all. They were beginnings. And this beginning was truly his.